Item 2, change of Gas City Vote Center location. We gave preliminary approval last meeting for a change in the Gas City Vote Center from First Christian Church back to Eastview Wesleyan Church, where it had been previously. And we instructed Pam as county clerk and Nancy Bryant, election deputy, to contact both facilities. Nancy, Pam, do you want to, either or both of you want to give a report on what's happened in that regard since our last meeting?
Yes, I did contact Eastview first to see if they were still interested in being a vote center, and they were. And so I asked them if they would send written acknowledgement of that, which they did. And then I did contact First Christian Church, thanking them for their years of service, and that letting them know, though, that we would be making a change for the 24 season. So,
Beginning with May,
correct.
and they have indicated their willingness to.
Correct.
Okay. I did call Mayor Rock just to solicit his input, and he was in favor of the change. I think the improved parking is just a easier facility and better staff facility, I think, to support, especially in a busy presidential primary and fall election. So it appears everything is in order. Is there a motion to formally approve the change in the Gas City Vote Center location for the primary and general election of 2024?
I make a motion to approve the change to Eastview.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Roops, second by Ms. Harris. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right, the change is approved. We're obligated, I believe, to notify the state election division in writing of our change, so.
And also make an amendment to our vote center plan with the state, which is probably what you're doing, so yeah.
Right, so. I was told we didn't have to formally amend the plan, but, I mean, I suppose it's semantics, but just so the state election division is notified, I think we're in compliance. Item 3, delinquent finance reports. Nancy, you have a report for us.
Yes, candidates who are either on the ballot or who have been on the ballot and have not closed out their campaign finance are required to do reporting. For candidates on the ballot, it's 3 times a year. For candidates not on the ballot, it's once a year. And letters go out reminding candidates when they're due, and then delinquent notices are sent. So we're to the point where we're down to 1 candidate who has not filed, who did not file any reports in 2023.
So we sent, how many notices we sent out? 17, 18 delinquency notices, I believe. Was it that many?
I'm sorry, I don't.
It was over.
At least a couple after each.
And as of today, all candidates are in compliance except for.
Jess Ellenball.
Okay. I see Jess here. Jess, do you want to speak to the delinquent report? Okay. Okay.
I got the letters, but I also
Okay.
got mine.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
guilty.
Uh,
I'm working on Shallot G.
Okay. That would be good. I'm of the opinion that we're obligated to impose the $1,000 fine in the case of Mayor Allenball. I would be willing, I think, from my own perspective, to waive fines on all candidates who have gotten compliant after initially receiving the delinquency notices. We're not obligated to do that. That's my personal opinion. I don't know, Tom, Pam, if you have any comments on that.
I agree. To waive those fees.
Okay. And impose the $1,000 fee on Mr. Allenball's campaign.
I would be in favor of waiving all fees as long as Mr. Allenball comes in compliance.
Okay.
Okay.
And I would agree with Tom.
Okay. Is there a motion then?
I'll make a motion to waive all fees Once the candidate comes in compliance, as long as it's done within 30 days of today. But I think we do need to take this seriously in the future, and remind the candidates that these are state requirements. And so that would be my motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
Motion by Mr. Root, second by Ms. Harris. I'm going to do a roll call here. Mr. Root,
Yes?
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
and I'm a no. So the motion passes. I don't believe those have to be unanimous, but
I think the waive has to be unanimous.
waive has to be
I
unanimous.
think so.
Okay. We'll check on that, Jess. We've got a 2-1 vote to waive all fines. Some election board processes by statute have to be unanimous. I didn't check to see if this is one of those, but we'll check that. If it is, we'll notify you, because if a unanimous vote is required, the motion carried in any effect, so if a unanimous vote is required, we'll let you know, so that would mean that the fine would be imposed, so we'll check on that and notify. Do you have an address, Jess?
Here's a sample of a fact finding from the state.
Okay,
And it does say, which fill in the blank for our purposes, but like, for example, the Grant County Election Board finds by unanimous vote of its entire membership, the imposition of the maximum civil penalty in this case would be unjust under the circumstances.
okay. So
And
you're-
finds that the penalty should be reduced to blank or reduced in it, or waived in its entirety.
Okay,
And there is a code,
Okay.
IC 39419.
okay. I guess my intention was to waive on all who were compliant, so I guess if we, just to make sure the record's clean, if we could have a second motion to that effect, leaving out Mr. Allenball, so we can, is that okay with you, Tom?
Well, can we get a time that you will be compliant, Jess?
I'll get you by the end of next week for sure. They're working on it now. I only need the last 4. I got the rest of it. I've got to get Julie to turn it in because I've never done this. She's always done it for me.
We appreciate you coming, by the way.
And maybe.
Strongly encouraged.
Well, I will make a motion to waive the fees of everyone that is in compliant.
Okay, that would accept Mr. Allenball then. Is there a second?
I second.
All right, we'll do a voice vote on this one. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so all candidates who were initially informed of a delinquency and have been in compliance, fines are waived in this instance. All right, item 4, candidate challenges. I'm going to start first by seeing which candidates are here. When I call your name, if you are here, please let me know. Holly Shook McGriff. Holly Shook McGriff. Nicholas Shook. Michael Bodkin Sr. Brandon Scott. Dallas Street. Michael Simison.
Here.
Where are you, sir? Okay, hello, Mr. Simpson, welcome. Robert Jackson.
Yes, President.
Todd Glancy,
Present.
welcome. Eric Wright.
Here.
Hello, Mr. Wright. And Brian Farley.
President.
Very good. All right, procedurally, the way we're going to conduct it is under the advice of the State Election Division. This is not a trial. It's not a court of law, but it has some similarities to it. We are going to call each challenge individually. I believe the challenger in all cases is Mr. Reese, who is present. Procedurally, it's a very simplified procedure. First of all, we will hear in each instance from the challenger. Secondly, and the candidates who are here, if they or their representatives want to question Mr. Reese as the challenger, ask questions of him. That's certainly allowed. And then we flip the tables. The candidates who are here and or their representatives may make a presentation. And then Mr. Reese, as the challenger, would have the opportunity to question them as well. There may be some questions from the election board members. At the conclusion of each hearing, we'll have a vote as to the, on each individual challenge. This is kind of an odd procedure in that we are interpreting under the rules. The Indiana statute says that in the cases of precinct committeemen, which I believe is the office that is the source of each challenge candidate, Indiana law says that we as the election board need to apply the rules of the state party in question. All the challenges today involve primary ballot access for Republican candidates. So essentially what we are applying is not a state statute, it's the rules of the Indiana State Republican State Committee. I do want to make of record that we have, I contacted the state party and was sent by the Indiana State Republican Party a copy of their rules, and those will be made available to anyone who doesn't have them, candidates. We all have them, and I will make that a part of the record, that we receive those directly from the state party. We have copies of the challenges. I'll start each hearing by just asking Ms. Bryant, as election deputy, the date of the petition, and then we'll proceed. We have conducted voting history of each challenge candidate when that is essential to our determination. So I'll have Ms. Bryant testify to that. So we will start. Mr. Reese, if you want to come up. And we will start with Center 4, Holly Shook McGriff. Holly Shook McGriff. Okay. Thank you. Ms. Bryant,
Yes.
first of all, I'm going to ask you to raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give here will be the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and your occupation.
Nancy Bryant, and I'm Grant County Election Deputy.
In regard to the challenge of Holly McGriff, did your office receive a challenge for her declaration to the Center for Precinct Committeemen?
Yes.
And what date was that received?
February 16th.
And in accordance
Oh,
with-
just to note, it was before noon, because the deadline
Before-
was noon on the
before,
16th. It was before noon.
And did you, in pursuant to the challenge, did you or someone operating directly under your supervision conduct a voting history record of Ms. McGriff through the Indiana statewide voters registration system?
Yes.
And is that attached to your report?
Yes.
Okay. I will make the challenge, the declaration of candidacy, the candidate filing challenge. Oh, and did your office receive a candidate filing challenge from Mr. Reese?
Yes.
And when was that received?
February 16th,
Okay.
before noon.
All right. I will make, in this particular challenge, I will make Ms. McGriff's declaration of candidacy form, Form Can 37, Mr. Reese's candidate filing challenge, Form Can 1, and the voting history as done by the election deputy's office, a part of the record. With that, Mr. Reese.
Good morning, members of the board, members of the public. These challenges that are based on voting history are as defined in the Republican rules, 124 and 3.2, I believe, show that in its very essence, 3.3, my apologies. There are parameters of which a Republican candidacy is qualified, and that is through not only voting in a Republican primary at least once, but voting the last 2 times that individual has voted as a Republican in a primary. So this candidate does not have a history that I'm aware of that qualifies that.
Correct.
The voting history of Miss Holly McGriff shows essentially no voting history record was available.
Correct.
Which would mean that she would not have cast the last two primary elections in which she participated, because in Miss McGriff's case, it indicates that she's, at least in the state of
Hasn't voted.
Indiana.
Correct. Hasn't voted.
Okay. All right.
Well, not in the state of Indiana.
Not in the state
Grant
of
County. I mean, in Grant County.
Or the state of Indiana, correct.
Well, I didn't do a statewide search on her. Her voting history only reflects Grant County when I look her up in Grant County.
My data showed the same.
Did we do a statewide search?
No, I didn't do statewide searches on any of them. Since they were filing for an office in Grant County.
Any questions, comments? Any questions for Mr. Reese from the board? It does, I'm looking at it, it does say check display all counties, Nancy. On Ms. McGriff's. That would indicate a statewide search, correct? If that's checked.
The only problem is, I mean, I get what they're saying, is candidate forms don't have birthdays on them. And if you find a person listed by the same name in more than one county, I don't know how you would know who that person is.
Okay.
Because we usually narrow it down by a birthday. And if the candidate filing forms don't ask for a birthday.
But in the SVR search, in this instance, it did, by checking the display all counties, that means that there was an all statewide search, is that correct?
I only did the countywide. I did not do a statewide search. Because it would, if I did a statewide search, it does it by name first. I can't pull her up and then just do statewide on her. If I put the name in, I have to select statewide. And it would show me any Amber McGriff, or
Holly.
Holly, any Holly McGriff registered in the state of Indiana.
Mr. Reese, do you have any reason to believe that she is not a Republican?
The only definition of a Republican in the state of Indiana is someone who votes in a primary and polls a Republican ticket. That is the fundamental qualification to be determined that. Someone can say it, someone can vote that way in the general election, support candidates, do whatever they want, but the only way that they can declare themselves as a Republican is by voting in the primary as a Republican.
All right, is there any further questions? Is there a motion on Holly McGriff, the challenge in Ray Holly McGriff?
My challenge, his challenge.
No, sir, this is not a court of law, it's not a judicial proceeding, but it's,
I have some evidence here that
I'm-
overrules his.
this is, the candidate has the right to present evidence, the candidate's not here, or their representative. She's not designated anyone as their representative, so, I mean, this is not a court of law, but it is a,
Kevin, may I?
sure.
Kevin, what do you have?
Well, okay, first of all, my name's Kevin.
Yeah, I know you, Kevin, how are
No,
you?
do you-
West Gardner Drive.
Do you have voting
Yes.
record?
No.
That's.
No, I don't. What I have is a law that was passed in December. And I have it right there. It is Rust versus Morales.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
it went to the Supreme Court, or the state Superior Court of Marion County.
right, and I can stop you there, Kevin, I don't mean to
Yes.
interrupt you. I'm very familiar with Rust, and unless the Supreme Court has ruled within the last half hour,
They put a stay on it on the 15th.
There is a stay.
So that means that that period that the application was open, that rule was gone.
the stay means that
The stay means that that rule is thrown out. but the Supreme Court judge or the Superior Court judge's ruling up until that stay applies.
The stay vacates the ruling of the trial court
It
judge
does
in Marion
at that
County.
point, in February
Yeah.
15th.
And until the Supreme Court issues a ruling, I'm expecting them, I thought they may even rule yesterday. That would be a very quick ruling, but I
What
don't,
I'm saying is the period of opening to apply falls within the range where
Yeah.
that was taken out.
okay.
That's what I.
Thank you. And I meant to say that,
Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
no, and yeah, the Rust decision was, the trial court in Jackson County, whatever county it was.
Marion County.
Marion County.
Marion County was filed. It arose from Jackson County, and
Yeah.
in any event, the Indiana Supreme Court, and I read the briefs and I watched the oral argument, which, you know, doesn't, until they issue a ruling, it doesn't matter. But the stay issued by Indiana Supreme Court means that the law that was present before before the trial court judge made his ruling is in effect. So we're left with the state of the law as it was prior to the decision in Rust being issued by the Marion County. You know, the deadline's February 29th. If it's possible that the Supreme Court may reinstate the trial court's ruling, but we don't know. If they do it after February 29th, it's going to be a huge mess, because we would definitely be in uncharted territories there. But I appreciate it, but
Might I also add that the Rust decision didn't have anything to do with party rules?
well, it had to do with affiliation statutes.
Okay,
and the-
but your call.
Yeah, okay.
Excuse me, may I ask a question?
We're getting far afield, so,
Well, it is about the rules, just read one of the rules. It says, "To be eligible for election to the office of precinct committeeman, you must be a member in good standing with the Republican Party and cast a Republican ballot at the last primary election you voted in." That seems different than two different primaries to me, so I just have a question about that.
it's Rule 124. A qualified primary Republican is a voter who casts Republican Party ballots at the two most recent primary elections in Indiana in which the voter voted, and is a Republican in good standing. So
Okay,
that's,
so this just said, to be eligible for election to the office of precinct committeeman, you must be a member in good standing with the Republican Party and cast a Republican ballot at the last primary election you voted in. Okay, this is selected precinct committeeman, party rules, and state statutes.
I don't know what you're reading from. So,
Appointed precinct committeeman.
okay. I'm going to proceed with, that may come up in other contexts with candidates who are here, so, all right. Any other questions? If not, the chair will entertain a motion as to the challenge on Holly Shook McGriff.
I'm not sure how to word it, but I
Okay.
move that we honor Mr. Reese's
Uphold the challenge.
uphold
Is
the
that-
challenge, yes.
Motion by Ms. Harris to uphold the challenge. Is there a second? I think the chair has right to second. I will second the motion. We'll do a roll call. Mr. Root?
No.
Mr. Root, no. Ms. Harris?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So the challenge is upheld 2-1. We'll proceed to Nicholas Shook. Nancy, I'm not going to go through the same questions. I'm just going to ask you in regard to Nicholas Shook. First of all, Nicholas Shook, I called earlier. Is he?
I don't think so.
Okay. Nancy, is the same questions regarding Mr. Shook? Would you affirm that a declaration of candidacy was filed timely, that
Yes.
candidate filing was timely, and that you did a voter history search?
Yes.
Mr. Shook?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I note on Mr. Shook, it does show history from Hamilton County, so we,
Oh, okay. So.
okay.
I was wrong.
Mr. Reese? And I understand your challenges may be similar if there's anything,
That similar circumstances apply. If you'd like me to go into further depth for the record, I will. If not, I will stand on my previous comments and
Okay?
challenges as the previous candidate.
For the record, it does show the voting history shows a Republican ballot was cast by Mr. Nicholas Shook in 2016 in Hamilton County, but that's the only primary ballot showing that he cast. So, any questions? All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
I move, considering those are both pretty significant elections, that I would move to uphold Mr. Reese's objection.
Uphold the challenge by Mr. Reese.
Correct.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second from Mr. Root. We'll do a roll call here. The motion is to uphold the challenge in regard to Nicholas Shook. Mr. Root?
No?
Ms. Harris?
I'm sorry, what was the,
We're voting on your motion to uphold the challenge.
and yes, I have, oh, can you vote in, okay. I'm
I voted no,
misunderstanding.
yeah,
Okay,
just
I'm
because he
voting
had a
yes.
record in
I
Hamilton
think I got
County.
confused there. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, yes, I vote yes to uphold the challenge.
And I vote yes, the challenge is upheld on Mr. Shook, 2-1. We shall now proceed to the challenge in regard to Michael Botkin Sr. Once again, Michael Botkin Sr., Michael Botkin Sr. All right, Ms. Bryant, once again, you are still under oath. I would just ask you, in the case of Mr. Botkins, did your office timely receive a candidate declaration from Mr. Botkin Sr.?
Yes,
Did your office timely receive a candidate filing charge from Mr. Reese?
yes,
And did your office, either yourself or someone directly under your supervision, conduct a voting history record on Mr. Botkins?
yes.
Those are part of the record. Mr. Reese?
Is that statewide or not statewide search?
It appears to be statewide.
It does. It defaults to that. I was thinking the search when you put the person's name in, but once you do search, there it says voting history, and it defaults to the box display all counties is checked.
It appears to be all counties, yes.
Yes. I was thinking when you put their name in, you had to select a name before you got to that point, but it
Yeah.
does.
Mr. Reese? And these are public records, correct? They're part of the record.
As previously suggested by Rules 124 and 3.3, I have challenged this candidate.
Voting history on Mr. Botkins indicates that he cast ballots in the 22 and 20 general elections, and it's showing no history of primary voting. Any questions? And just this doesn't directly pertain to this particular challenge, but the law and the party rules allow for, just for members of the public who may not know, and to clarify the law, both the Republican state party rules and the state statute allow for a party chairman in an individual county, yourself,
Yeah.
in this instance as Republican Party chairman, to grant a waiver of the two primary rule upon application of the individual.
Correct.
So that would be the two primary rule is not ironclad. It does allow for a waiver if signed off on by the party chairman,
Correct.
the respective party chairman.
And in each of these instances, there was no request for such a waiver in a fashion of where that timeline I could be able to
All right.
accommodate that.
Any questions for Mr. Reese relating to Michael Botkins? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion to uphold the challenge.
We have a motion by Mr. Roop to uphold the challenge. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Ms. Harris. I'll conduct a roll call. Mr. Roop?
Yes?
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Challenge in regard to Michael Botkins Sr. passes 3-0. We'll next move to the challenge relating to Mill 2, Just for the record, I don't believe I stated, Holly Shook McGriff was related to Center 4 Precinct Committeeman. Nicholas Shook related to Center 18 Precinct Committeeman. Michael Bodkin Sr. relates to Mill 1 Precinct Committeeman. This challenge in relation to Brandon Scott relates to Mill 2 Precinct Committeeman. All right, Nancy, you're still under oath. In relation to the challenge on Brandon Scott, did you timely receive a candidate filing from Mr. Scott?
Yes,
Did you timely receive a candidate filing challenge from Mr. Reese?
yes,
And did your office, did you yourself or someone operating directly under your supervision conduct a voting history on Mr. Scott?
yes.
Okay, those will all be made part of the record of this hearing.
And he does have a lengthy vote history, so I gave you
Yes.
all 3 pages
Yes.
to his vote history.
Mr. Reese?
The records that I have available to me at the time of the challenge indicated that Mr. Scott did not have a voting record that complied with state party rules 124 and 3.
He does show primary votes Republican, several cases. His most recent, the records indicate his most recent primary votes were as a Republican, on the Republican ballot in 2008, and as a Democrat in 2007. And that's the basis of your challenge.
Right. Does the record show that he has voted in 2 consecutive primaries as a Republican?
That's- okay.
The last 2 that he had voted in?
I showed
The last one was
2010 and
2014, and then 2010 after, prior to that.
Yes,
Those are
that's
the
what I
2
showed.
on the first page, right?
Oh. Yep. I beg your pardon, I started the wrong page, I started on page 2. I'm sorry. Disregard what I said.
I would just like to say that these are all individuals who are seeking leadership in the Republican Party. And yet they're lacking to show leadership in voting, and that concerns me.
Mr. Reese, it does appear, I apologize, I for some reason flipped the second page. It does appear that Mr. Scott voted Republican in 2014 primary and 2010 Republican primary. That would seem to
Okay.
qualify him.
Then if that record I will trust is stand, I'll withdraw my,
Okay. Is everyone seeing? Thank you, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Roop. That's why there's second set eyes here. I appreciate it, Tom. All right, we'll show that the challenge of Mr. Scott is withdrawn, and he will appear on the ballot.
I would still like to note that the last couple elections have been important elections, and he didn't show us with a vote history of which way he was leading, but
and thank you very much, Pam, for saying that. It gives me an opportunity to say that this is not personal amongst any of these individuals of which I've challenged. I have a record of and do hope to bring more people to the party. So there is no personal reason in any of these circumstances that these challenges have been brought. Just I have to defend the party as well as support and grow the party. So, I mean, I would hope that all of these individuals that are on this or on the ballot will continue to engage, and they have decided to make that step into the party and will be good active members thereof.
Okay. We'll move next to the challenge of Van Buren, precinct committeeman, and challenge relating to Dallas Street. Oh.
Okay.
Dallas Street. Who's our IT guy here? Shane.
where did he go?
I don't know.
Is he muted?
I
Looks
think
like it.
so.
but I
Okay,
don't know how to,
yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
What's that? Mr. Street, can you hear me? If you can, please unmute yourself.
Shane knows how this works.
Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Yes, sir. Is this Dallas Street?
It is.
Good morning, sir. I'm Craig Persinger, Chairman of the Election Board. Can you hear me?
Hey, sir, how are you?
I'm sorry?
I said, hey, sir, how are you?
I am well. With me here is Mr. Tom Roop and Ms. Pam Harris, who are the other members of the election board. As long as we have a good audio connection, unless we don't need to do a video unless you prefer that. Mr.
No,
Nick,
sir, this is me.
okay, I try to minimize opportunities for people to see my face too, so I find it better that way. Mr. Darren Reese is here. We have called your challenge. Have you been following the meeting online, sir?
A little bit back and forth. I'm currently at work, so I listen when I can. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
It's a fairly informal procedure. What we're going to do is Mr. Reese, as the challenger, is going to present his statements. You will have the opportunity after the conclusion of his statements to ask him questions. We may have a few questions for him. Then we will proceed. If you have anything to present to the board, you are free to do so. Mr. Reese would have the chance if he desires to ask you questions to you, and then we'll take a vote. Do you have any questions about that?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. Reese, please proceed.
Yes.
Wait, Mr. Street, did you hear, we introduced the documents, did you hear that part where I asked Ms. Brandt, the election deputy, she verified on the record that you timely filed a declaration of candidacy, that Mr. Reese timely filed a challenge, and that a voting history record of you was done by the Ms. Bryant or someone acting directly under her supervision. So, and
Yes, sir.
those documents are all part of the record.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Mr. Reese?
Yes. With the information available to me and through party rules 124 and 333, Mr. Street does not have the appropriate voting history to be a qualified Republican on the ballot. That's the basis of my charge.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Reese, Mr. Street?
No, sir. I'd like to provide my rebuttal to the board here present today.
Okay, you'll have your chance here momentarily.
Understood, sir.
We are showing the voting history record. Do you have a copy of the voting history, Mr. Street?
Not of my voting history. No, sir.
All right. What we've been provided, what the board's been provided, indicates that you have voted in the 2022 general election, in the 2022 primary election as a Republican, and the 2020 general election. That's what we're looking at, so.
Yes,
With
sir.
that, yes, so you're now free to present any statement or any evidence you have, sir.
You cut out. Go ahead. Repeat that, sir.
It's, you've got the floor, Mr. Street, to present any evidence, arguments, statements, anything that you'd like to present to the board.
Mr. Street, it also.
Understood, sir. So you just
Hold
confirmed
on,
that I
Mr.
voted.
Street. Mr. Greg Kitts is here. Is he representing you?
Not yet, sir. I was just in the middle of a text conversation.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay, please proceed, sir.
Yes, Mr. Kitts is representing me,
Okay,
but I still would like to add my piece.
you will. All right, we'll hear from Mr. Kitts then.
I'm gonna ask Mr. Street, go ahead and explain what you have done in the previous primary election of which they do have record, which I believe is the 2022 primary. Did you vote?
So in the previous 2022 primary, I voted Republican across the board, outside of the governor.
Yeah, you have it.
I believe that was the vote. You'll have to forgive me. I have a traumatic brain injury, so going all the way back to 2020 and 2022, I do not remember exactly, but I can positively tell you that I voted Republican outside of the governor.
Okay, so, and this voting record that we have here doesn't indicate any prior voting to the 2020 general election. So basically, your most recent voting, I know it does say a qualified primary Republican on the ballot, would be for the two most recent primary elections in Indiana, in which the voter voted. Well, he's only voted in one. Therefore, I guess I would argue that he is a qualified primary Republican because he has only voted in one primary election. He's never shown any alliances to the Democratic Party.
Can I add some information in there?
You certainly can.
So the reason why there was no voting history prior to 2020 is because I joined active duty Army on January of 2008. And the operations tempo of that career and being outside of the state of Indiana while maintaining residency made it incredibly difficult to cast an absentee ballot, let alone stay on top of local politics or what was happening back home. So I was medically retired in 2017. And if you track my voting history, you'll see that I voted in 2020 and beyond. So again, the reason there is no voting history prior to 2020 is because of an operations tempo that included multiple combat deployments to Afghanistan, multiple training rotations, and multiple leadership schools during my time in service.
Mr. Street, thank you for your service.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Would those have been in other states, Mr. Street, when you were on deployments or active duty?
When I was in active duty, sir, I served in Hawaii, New York, the military academy, Fort Stewart, Georgia, and Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington, all states that are a considerable distance from the state of Indiana.
Understood. Mr. Reese, do you have any questions for Mr. Street? Or?
I do not.
And I will just state publicly, Mr. Street, you have, and I would state this about all candidates, but and once again, thank you for your service. We're not here, we're just like anybody that is called upon to interpret or apply the laws as written. I know, speaking for myself, when I vote one way or the other, I'm not by my vote saying that the way the rules or the statutes are exactly the way that I would write them if I were in charge. The point is that I'm not in charge, that sitting in the position I'm sitting, I'm called upon to enforce the law and the party rules as they are written, and I'm not free to substitute my own judgment as to how it should be. I may have an opinion as to how it should be, and it may even be different than the way the rules are written now, but sitting where I'm sitting, I'm called upon to enforce the rules the way they're written and not substitute my personal judgment. So,
Mr. Reese, in light of this information, you do have the ability to withdraw the challenge in light of the fact that we have a veteran who has voted Republican in these prior elections. Would you withdraw that challenge then?
I will not. The candidate did file timely and would have had the opportunity to reach out to me, which he did last night, to plead his case.
I'd like to repeat
hold on, Mr. Street. Hold on, Mr. Street. Mr. Reese has the floor. You'll have a chance.
Right. So, given there was ample opportunity before the filing deadline were to occur to appeal to me for a waiver prior to that, I'll stand by my position.
Mr. Street, you can.
Sir, I'd like to point out that I received the documentation in the mail yesterday. I just got home from a veterans retreat in Colorado at 2 o'clock yesterday morning. The paperwork was dated 16 February and 20 February. So yes, there was, if you will, a timely response window available. However, I was out of the state and did not see that letter until yesterday. And when I did get the letter, the first thing I did was make arrangements to have a phone conversation with Mr. Reese. Mr. Reese and I talked about all of this on the phone, and now you have my voting history in front of you as an entire panel. So Mr. Reese says there was a timely window for response. However, I was out of the state, so I was not able to see that paperwork until yesterday.
Yeah.
I am only able to grant a waiver during the time frame of the voters' registration opportunity. So when a candidate filing window is the only time I can do that. And again, I very much appreciate Mr. Street reaching out. We had what started off as a very nice conversation, but, and I thank you very much for your service. I've encouraged you last evening and can encourage you right now to continue to engage the party.
Then, sir, I would challenge you to show your appreciation by removing your challenge to my candidacy after you've seen the last 3 voting records of me voting Republican. If you truly want to show appreciation and you truly want to show encouragement, now is your opportunity to withdraw that challenge.
I appreciate your sentiment, but I'm also withholding and upholding the rules of the party and those that I'm also.
Understood, and I stand by my comments on our telephone call last night.
Great.
All right. Any other questions?
I have a question, more of a statement, if you don't mind. So I've worked at both, I want to say, Mr. Street, thank you for your service. But since 2002, people have been able to vote absentee by mail through the military. I have it on my phone, the government's website.
Okay.
So he's been able to vote by mail since 2002. So if it's something that was requested, he could have gotten it, maybe it was something he didn't know about, but it was available to him to be able to vote by
Okay.
mail
All right.
since 2002.
Who was
Hold on.
that speaking,
This is
sir?
Corinne Meyer. Corinne Meyer?
Yes.
Our, works in voters registration, so,
Will you ask her if she's ever served, sir?
No, sir, I have never
well,
served.
okay. All
So
right.
would you ask her if she understands the operations tempo inside the United States military when we're at war with 2 different countries?
Well, I appreciate your, Ms. Meyer's not a party of the case, so she was just. and I-
Understood. I'm just trying to clear up why I did an absentee vote from my phone.
I understand, Mr. Street. All right, any further questions from the board? Okay, if not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Well, my motion would be to reject the challenge.
We have a motion from Mr. Roop to reject the challenge. Is there a second? All right, motion fails for lack of second. Is there an alternative motion? Do you have a motion?
Pardon?
Do you have an alternative motion? Or-
No.
Okay. Well, we've got to take action.
Yeah.
I will move to uphold the challenge. Is there a second?
Okay, I will second it.
There is a second. Mr. Roop,
No.
excuse me, who spoke that?
This is ridiculous. Annual report.
Well,
You can't make a motion to reject the military person.
hold on, sir. We've called for, this isn't a court of law, but we're under the same rules of decorum as a court of law. I understand your,
Act like court law.
okay. Mr. Roop,
No.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
I'm done.
chair votes yes. The challenge is upheld 2-1. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Street. We will now move to Michael Simison.
That was terrible. Absolutely terrible.
This, we appreciate your being here. This is not a court of law.
I don't care.
Well, we're not going to get into spontaneous outbursts here.
Disgraceful.
Michael Simison.
I just think when Mr. Reese says it's within my parameters of all the laws and the rules to uphold the laws and rules, is it also within your parameter of the laws and the rules to waive that, something like this?
We're moving on to Mr. Simison here. Thank you.
And also, I don't know if any of the candidates even were told that they could ask for a waiver.
That's the law, ma'am.
That's the
They
law.
do have the right to.
Yeah, I realize
sequence.
that, but I mean, like, if we're just trying to
All right,
get involved.
we're moving on to Mr. Simison. Thank you, ma'am. Nancy, you're still under oath. I
Yes.
would ask you the same questions. Did you timely receive a declaration of candidacy from Michael Simison?
Yes,
A timely challenge from Mr. Reese?
yes,
And did your office conduct the voter history?
yes.
All right. Mr. Reese,
My challenge is based on Republican rules 124 and 333, and the voting history of Mr. Simonson that I'm aware of does not qualify him to be placed on the ballot.
In this situation, I could not even find him registered to vote.
Okay. Mr. Simonson?
Yes.
Well, is Mr. Kitts?
Yes.
Okay, oh, very good. Okay. Did you, first of all, procedurally, Mr. Kitts, do you have any questions for Mr. Reese?
I guess you base the challenge on what exactly?
He is not a qualified candidate,
And that's based on,
but he is not a Republican of record, nor has he voted in the last two primaries in the Republican primary of his voting history.
Okay, Mr. Simpson, am I pronouncing your name correctly, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Would you do me a favor of removing your hat for the
Oh,
purpose of the
got it.
proceeding? Thank you. I like hats too, but it's your turn to present making a statement, present evidence, argument on your behalf.
one issue that we have, and it's gonna probably kind of fall into these issues on the next one with modified, but this candidate filing challenge hasn't even been stamped. This does say copy down here at the bottom, but there's no, it was not actually file stamped.
I'm sorry, that is my fault. I did know all those at the bottom. Clerks sealed them and
Is the seal,
dated.
is that auto-generated there?
I put it on there just because of the separating it from the originals, in case the originals got passed around to make sure that, so yes, unfortunately, that is an oversight, the file stamp, but I did stamp them and date them at the bottom of the form.
Okay.
Mr. Simonson, are you a registered voter in Grant County?
I should be, I thought it was, yes.
Ms. Bryant, for clarification, you didn't see a voting history. Did you find evidence that Mr. Simonson is registered in Grant County as a
No.
voter?
I provided the search screens that I did when I put his name in. I couldn't match the address because the filing form had a Jerry Avenue address on it. I came up with a canceled Michael Simonson at a Highway Drive address. And then
Mr.
when I'm
As a
sorry.
date of birth, Mr. Simpson, what's your date?
1462, and there's no reason why anything should have been canceled.
Nancy, what is the process by which a voter is canceled or his registration is canceled?
There is the state does what they call voter list maintenance project every couple of years where postcards get sent to voters. And there is like a response and then there's a letter that comes later to give them the opportunity to update if the cards have come back undeliverable or if there's evidence. I did, let me give you this, I printed it off this morning. It looks like it was canceled back in January of 2019, and it says auto cancel.
Is that because of lack of voting?
Yes.
I never received anything in the mail whatsoever, I would have filled it out and sent it back. I've lived in Grant County my whole life, I was born in Grant County.
But you've not voted in Grant County?
In the past years, I didn't see a big issue about it, but the way things are going, and in the past few years, I think there's a big need for everybody to get involved, to start changing some of the policies that's been totally disgraced by some people that are in office.
Well, I'd certainly encourage you to get active and involved, Mr. Simpson.
I did print the vote history for the one that was canceled, not knowing if it was him because of no birthday, and it only showed 2008 primary Republican. So at least for the canceled, there was just one vote history come up, and that was 2008 primary, 2008 primary, and that should be attached. I provided that because I wasn't sure if he was the canceled person or not, but.
All right.
I think that we would argue that, obviously, he has voted in his most recent vote in a primary election was Republican. And also, we don't really officially have that this candidate filing challenge was stamped. That was actually filed, and therefore, we certainly believe that this should be denied, this challenge.
All right. I'll put up, Ms. Bryant did testify that she received the challenge form on a timely basis under oath. Is there anything further? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
I move that we uphold Mr. Reese's challenge.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second to uphold the challenge in regard to Mr. Simison in Mill 10. Roll call, Mr. Roop,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Challenge is upheld. 3-0. I certainly encourage you, Mr. Simpson, to stay active and vote at every opportunity. Thank you.
Sir, may I take just one moment?
Yes.
To go back to Mr. Street?
Yes.
That we hold our military in extremely high regard. And there are provisions for our military to be able to vote. And we, in our office, and statewide, I believe nationally, those provisions are handled very carefully. We have military who are send their votes in all the time, and we hold those with great respect. And I don't want, which it doesn't matter what people think, but we do hold them in high regard, and we do make special provisions for them to be able to vote.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move to the matter of Mill 3, Robert Jackson. Mr. Jackson, would you come up, please? Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning.
Mr. Kitts representing you here?
Not necessarily.
Okay. All right. All right. Mr. Reese?
Before we get into what looks to be under a different code, I wanted to let you know that my records show that I did file a challenge on Mr. Jackson's voting record as well. Is that what we are discussing at this point, or are we talking about potential issue with the notary issue?
I'm showing on Mr. Jack, well, first of all, let me do the prerequisite questioning of Ms. Bryant here. Ms. Bryant, in regard, you're still under oath in regard to Mr. Jackson, Robert Jackson, Mill 10. Is it Mill 3? Oh, I'm sorry, Mill 3.
Mill
I
3.
misspoke. I'm sorry, Mill 3. Did you receive a timely candidate declaration form from Mr. Jackson?
Yes,
Did you receive a timely filed candidate filing challenge from Mr. Reese?
yes,
And did you receive a voting history, or did you or someone acting under your supervision generate a voting history form?
yes,
All of those will be made a part of the record. Mr. Reese, I'm showing his voter history showing 2022 Republican vote, 2020 Republican vote.
Okay,
So he would qualify under that provision.
fantastic.
So are there independent grounds other than voting history for your challenge?
Nope, that was not the voting record that I saw, but I will bear up to what yours was.
Okay. All right, then you wouldn't be moving to withdraw your challenge?
I will withdraw that challenge.
Challenge on Mr. Jackson is withdrawn. Mr. Jackson will be on the ballot.
There you go, you're on the ballot.
Yeah.
Very much.
Okay.
Apologies for missing that.
Thank you for coming.
We will now move to the matter of Fairmount 3, Todd Glancy. Mr. Glancy. morning, sir.
Good morning.
I would ask that you remove your hat for the hearing, if you would
Yes.
be so kind, thank you. Be bald and proud, I am.
Yeah, we're almost there.
All right, yeah, all right. All right, Ms. Brandt, you're still under oath. In regard to Mr. Todd Glancy, Fairmount 3, did you receive a timely declaration of candidacy from Mr. Glancy?
Yes,
Did you receive a timely candidate filing challenge from Mr. Reese?
yes,
And voting history is not, did you generate any records? Voting history is not an issue here. Did you generate any records in connection with this?
I provided the documents that Mr. Reese did with his.
Okay, very good. We'll proceed. Mr. Reese.
This is a step away from the challenges that we've been able to address to date. And my question to this board is whether or not it should recognize the validity of the next many challenges based on signatures and notarizations and modifications of the file, post signatures and notarization. On February 6th, I was filing to run as a delegate to the GOP state convention. Through conversation with election clerk Nancy Bryant, she was discussing an unusually large number of PC candidate forms that were brought in and filed by a third party, which is also unusual. Nancy continued that many of the forms had been rejected by her as incomplete and returned to the persons attempting to file them. After the initial rejection, the persons attempted to get Nancy's permission to just fix them at the moment where they were trying to be submitted, they were rejected again. Per Nancy, does that sound familiar? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Coincidentally, as I was still present in the election office that very day, two persons entered the room to complete the filing on behalf of the previously rejected candidate forms, and the forms had been completed in the same handwriting on each form, and they seemed to be accepted. The four candidate forms that I recognize were Brian Farley of Green, Robert Jackson of Mill 3, Todd Glancy of Fairmount 4, and Eric Wright of Fairmount 4. Before I left the election office, I asked Nancy if the forms had been re-signed or the notary updated from the earlier submission, and they had not been, to my knowledge. Members of the board, altering documents after signing and notarizing them is considered fraud and can and should have serious legal consequences. For many years, election security has been something that we have all been trying to achieve, and this is not only about voters, but it's also about candidates. I contend that what we have here, in at least the instances before you today, are minimally and improperly completed and thus invalid election forms and potentially under further scrutiny, fraudulent election filings. Again, I say this for the contested instances that were modified after the candidate signature and after notarization. I urge this body to reject the tainted documents by deeming them invalid. Further, if it is the board's pleasure, I would recommend this body forward the issue to the county prosecutor or the state of Indiana election division that they investigate the circumstances surrounding the submission. We must defend the integrity of our elections, and that starts right here. But again, what I'm asking for you today through these challenges is to find them invalid and reject them from the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reese. Are you representing Mr. Clancy?
I am, yes, doing this, yep.
Okay.
I'll make a statement.
Yeah, sure. Well, now's the time
Questions?
for you to question Mr. Reese if you have any.
No,
You don't have to. Yep.
I'd just like to make this statement.
Okay.
It's a pretty strong charge to call it fraudulent.
Well, what would you call altering a notarized document, Counselor?
The owner or the signer of the document changing it is merely changing it, but my question is,
Without documentation.
he's a registered voter of precinct 3 of the township of Fairmount.
I'm not
Is what it says
challenging.
on the document. Could he be a precinct committeeman for another precinct on this primary ballot?
That is material to my challenge, because that is the part of the document that was not filled out, and that document does allow for 2 different offices to be filed for.
But he had marked precinct committeeman. What was
I
it?
do not believe that was marked at the time of its initial rejection.
That I don't know. Do you have a copy of the original rejected document? Because he has told me that the box was marked, that he wanted a precinct committeeman. What he didn't put in was that it was Fairmount 3.
Okay.
And so,
If you want to ask Ms. Bryant would have been the individual who would have received that. You're free to question her, Greg, if you want.
That was the issue, that the actual precinct was not identified they wanted to run in.
but he had marked for a precinct committeeman.
That part, I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Okay.
I know the precinct itself was missing.
Right. So the very office of which he wanted to run and the area of which he wanted to live for was left blank.
But he lives in the precinct 3 of Fairmount. And
But it did not declare that.
I would note there, and I don't know if this is a question or not, I'll reserve that, first of all. Do you have any further questions of Mr.?
No, not
You're in
Mr.
your presentation.
Not Mr. Reese. no.
Okay, so
Okay.
now's whatever presentation you would like to make.
Go ahead,
They're in the-
if you have a statement you'd like to make. This was a second one that might have been overlooked again without a file stamp on it. And so it does mean a lot to have a file stamp on here if we're going to also say that this Fairmount 3 needed to be on there when all he's going to run for, he lives in Fairmount 3. I mean, clerical error is kind of what we're getting at here. I didn't see who just handed me this document, but this one is obviously file stamped, and that would be his declaration of candidacy. But you had a statement, I don't want to get off base here, but,
Okay?
yeah. You want to make a statement?
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
just waiting to have.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just trying to be patient.
You have the floor, Mr. Glancy.
Okay, so, my goal here is just really simple, is I've retired for the second time, probably not the last time. And I simply just want to serve the community by volunteering. This is a non-paid position for a vacant precinct committeeman position. It's just as simple as that. There's nothing else behind it. And so I do agree that illegal modifications of documents is a very serious issue. And I'd like to commend Nancy Bryant and Darren Reese for their actions in holding Grant County election processes to a high degree of high detailed standard. So I appreciate that. And I commend those actions. So, response for the civics charge. I believe it's obvious that there's a team of citizens that met to fill out the 47417 form. I'll just call it the form from now on. And this addresses the same date and signature for the notary concerned. So I feel like that has, I've at least addressed it. I don't know if it needed that. But there was a group of citizens that we got together to fill up these precinct committee meetings. And I think that's very obvious. They're all the same date, same notary. I mean, that's just kind of a no-brainer. There are no ill intentions or malice in this team of citizens. We're just wanting to serve the community. The individuals that were selected to file our forms, we selected and we filled them all out together, basically one at a time, sort of thing. And then we asked these individuals to take them and file them. And within that, as we asked these individuals to do this, for myself, I only speak for myself, is that I provided these individuals to do and have permission to do whatever was needed to file those forms. And I look at this as they completed the file and did not modify it. modification is a little more general term in my mind than that they completed it. They did not strike something out, they did not change the document. So in my mind, they certainly had that permission to do that. And this permission is really based on the trust that we have within the group of individuals that we're working with. So there's a sense of trust. We gave them this to be able to file it. I expected them to file it regardless if they had a flat tire or, that they would get that done and have that in this timely time frame. I also agreed that, they can certainly fill in a document because, as I understand it, this is the premise I'm working from, is that since I live in Fairmount Precinct 3, I cannot run for another precinct. So I left that blank, that portion blank. So that's my reasoning behind that. I think the individuals that did file the forms, and I extremely appreciate it, and I'm sorry I wrote this in and roped them into something that was, a little more out of their ordinary daily duties. So, but I do thank them for that. The information that they provided reaffirms the information that I already provided on the form. They explained that. And I explained it as my understanding that a person must live in the precinct that they represent. And then, for my last comment here, I believe it's the notary's duty is to screen the signer of the document. This is my understanding of the law. And I may not be right. Right? But this is the understanding I was going on as I was filling this out, and I want you to understand it. That the notary's duty is the true identity of the signer, and to then document the time and date in which it was signed. The willingness of the person to sign it, right, that they're not under duress, and then that the signer understands the severity or whatever the legal implications of the form. That they're in the right mind in which they understand what it means, right? So those are the functions of the notary as I understand it. And then I guess my last statement after hearing what has been said here today is and I assume that the question that this has not been time-stamped. Since it was a copy, I didn't want to bring that up because I didn't see the original. It's not time-stamped.
Correct. We actually don't have a timestamp.
Okay.
I did the part at the bottom that day. And I think what happened is the one that I knew had issues, I set aside because there were a couple calls I had to make to the state. And unfortunately, the file stamp probably was overlooked because the majority are file stamped. But I did fill out the bottom of that on that day before.
Nancy, you didn't notarize Mr. Glancy's.
No, it's on the back. I only notarized the
challenge.
challenge.
The challenge, okay.
But no, I didn't do any of the candidate
Kelly
filing.
Kistler knows.
Or none of
Okay, yeah,
those,
I'm-
not this, yes.
Yeah, you notified us.
I didn't. no.
Mr. Glancy, did you sign in front of Kelly Kistler
Yes.
this form?
But that's the person that was
The notary, yes. But you did sign it in her presence.
Absolutely, yes. And so, I guess I would, and then to clarify one other point that I heard today was, the challenge form was filed on the 16th, and that needed to be filed and notarized then by noon. And so then it becomes very critical that it was time-stamped. So then I'm going to challenge the challenge.
I know she's testified under oath, but I mean, ours isn't stamped. He got this fixed in a timely manner, so it says Fairmount 03. So I mean, we got clerical errors here, and I consider this a clerical error. he believed he could only run as Fairmount 3's precinct. And so that box was marked, but it wasn't filled in. And I know Mr. Reese is trying to make a mountain out of this to a fraud, but if the document was actually notarized, Black's Law Dictionary, 4th edition, defines notarize of a public notary to attest to the authenticity of a signature or mark. That was done. It was notarized. And also, a notary public is a person authorized by a state to administer oaths, certified documents, attest to the authenticity of signatures, is all that that person is doing. Therefore, he signed it, and then, oh, you forgot this blank, is what was said at the election office. So what do? Hey, we forgot to fill in Fairmount 3. Okay, fill in Fairmount 3. So that's what's done. Now it's resubmitted.
Mr. Glancy, on your form, do you recall, when you signed it, do you recall, because do you have the form in front of you, a copy of the form?
Yes. It's not-
There's two
it's trying to cut off.
spots
Yeah.
on, there's two spots on CAN 37, the CAN 37 form to identify.
We've got State Form 47,
Okay.
417.
Okay, I've got CAN 37.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, up there. Okay, yep.
yeah, we're using the link. CAN 37 is the Declaration of Candidacy. There's two spots on the CAN 37 form for the person, you in this case, to identify the office that you're filing for. Is that correct? I'm looking at subparagraph 1, or number 1, it says, it doesn't identify the office, but saying where you live.
Yes.
So you identify, and then in number 3, you're supposed to check the office, or
Yes.
precinct committeeman. This CAN 37 applies to both precinct committeeman declarations and state convention delegates. So you were filing for PC, so is that your signature, is that your handwriting on the precinct committeeman form,
Yes.
where it's Xed? Because it appears to be two different signatures, or two different handwritings. One where it says registered voter precinct 3, Township of Fairmount. I'm no handwriting expert.
To answer this, I really want to be, may I come up and?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I have a question. Exactly.
Hold on,
which
Chuck.
place are you?
Here and here.
Here?
Here and here is what I'm looking at.
Right, and I'm saying through the trust that I have in these individuals,
Okay.
I give them permission to fill this
Understand.
in the complete form.
Understand.
So
Okay.
yes, that particular thing, I did not physically write that.
All right. All right. Anything further? Mr. King?
My last comment is, I look to use the election board for guidance to allow me to be able to serve the community.
How long have you been voting in primary elections?
I don't know what the record is. I follow the Republicans. If I wouldn't have this hat on, I'd have a MAGA hat on. I've followed it a long time. And if I voted outside of the Republican Party, it is really, and I have, like I voted for Ross Perot back in the day, because I want to make a statement to both parties, or as some people say, it's a uniparty. And so this is really interesting. I'm really enjoying looking at it, but I know I'm not going past. But I wanted to make the point that I do those to off of the Republicans to wake up both parties to say that there will be at some point another candidate. To, you guys need to, the parties need to come by and look at what the people are wanting. Okay, so I tried to make those, but although I didn't believe in what Rosenblatt was doing at the time, that yes, this is we need to think out of the box a little bit more than what we're doing.
So I think the major question just has to do with this Fairmount 3. It was filled in through his authorization to fill it in. It was corrected, and now it's been refiled. The question is whether or not it's supposed to be re-notarized. I found nothing in the law that would indicate that. I think that's ours.
Hold on, Chuck.
Wait a minute. This is
No,
Bob
Chuck, you wait a minute. Chuck,
He just waived
Chuck.
Bob Jackson, and they hit Bob Jackson for the same thing they're hitting.
Chuck, sit down. please, my friend? Okay. Thank you. All right. For my part, is that any other?
Yeah, this one.
Okay.
No,
For my part, I share Mr. Reese's obvious concerns with voter security. I agree with Mr. Kitts that a notary's primary function is, I understand, I've always understood under the law and common practice is to make sure that the person signing it, the document, is the person that he or she purports to be. The notary's function does not extend to attesting to the completeness or the accuracy of, I mean, I can ask for a notarized form saying that my name is Greg Kitts and ask a notary to, and if, you know, if I'm not Greg Kitts, they're not going to notarize it, so. I'm not seeing fraudulent intent. I share Mr. Reese's concern. We have to be very diligent on any issues of voter fraud, but I'm not seeing fraudulent intent here, and the forms are, the evidence, what I can conclude is that someone other than Mr. Glancy wrote Fairmount 3 in the box here.
And that happened to Bob.
Hold on, Chuck. Chuck, you're out of order, Chuck.
No, I don't care if I'm out of order or not.
Chuck, you're out of order.
Bob Jackson got hit for the
Chuck.
same thing. You can't do one to one and not
They
do
were
another.
Chuck,
two
you're out
different
of
issues,
order.
Chuck.
No, there isn't. I got Bob Jackson's form right here.
Chuck, you're out of order. I don't want to have to ask you to leave, so.
I wish he would. I'd like to see you take me out of here.
I'm not going to take you out of here.
Now listen then.
I got a bad knee.
Bob Jackson, you hit Bob Jackson.
My fighting days are over.
so at least let them hear what they're going to do.
Yeah.
All right.
The Jackson issue is
All right.
on voter history, not on this. We have
Corinne,
not
could
heard
you,
that
Corinne,
on
Ms.
this.
Meyer, could you approach here? Thank you. All right. So to conclude my statement, I'm not seeing fraudulent intent, so I guess I'm saying I agree with both of you. I share Darren's concern for fraudulent intent. I'm not finding fraudulent intent, I don't think, and I'm going to vote to deny this challenge, so.
I will second it.
Well, that's not a motion. Is there a motion?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I will move to deny the challenge.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Harris, second by Mr. Roop to deny the challenge. Roll call, Mr. Roop.
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
And I'm a yes, so the challenge is denied by 3-0. Mr. Glancy will be on the ballot.
Thank you. I want to thank you all.
Thank you all.
And thank you, Mr. Glancy, and Joe, I can't help but resist, but all you had to do is ask, and here we go. Thank you very much for your comments.
I would like to make one more statement.
Sure.
May help along the way a little bit. It sounds like you're asking that, or you expected people to call you, and when I looked through this paperwork again here today.
Oh, no,
I did
I'm
not
sorry,
read
that was a
anything here that
Ross
sounded
Perot
like
joke.
If I had questions, I could call Ms. Bryant.
Right.
Right. But I didn't see where it was like, oh, I should call you. I'm just giving you some maybe advice that if that is what was needed,
No,
or if that would have helped the situation, I would have.
again, I appreciate your interest, I welcome your interest, and I would encourage anyone, as I did suggest even when I saw the ladies at that, when they were filing, to feel free to call the chair, come to some county events, do some things. I wish you well.
All right, thank
Okay.
you. We'll now move to the matter of Eric Wright. You're Mr. Wright, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Bryant, you are under oath. Once again, I'm going to ask you the,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
may I ask a question? If
Yes.
These are all very much identical to?
yes.
Is it going to be your position that that is the position on all, if I dare ask? Because
Uh,
I could save us some time here.
Yeah. If the evidence is similar,
The evidence is exactly the same.
I don't anticipate changing my position on.
then
None.
if it would please this body, I will withdraw.
As to Mr. Wright and Mr. Farley?
Yes,
Okay.
as any of the challenges based on the filings.
All right. Mr. Wright, challenge has been withdrawn. You will appear on the ballot. Mr. Brian
Okay.
Farley, where's Mr. Farley? Your challenge has been withdrawn. You will appear on the ballot.
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Reese. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make.
What's your name, please? I'm sorry?
Linda Morgan
Hello, Linda.
from Upland.
Okay.
I write in legal documents all the time, and whenever we have to make a change, we do an initial. And that might be something that you have to update forms to have that initial there.
There have been some done, yeah. I know, yeah, just like writing a check. You initial it if you make a, yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Thank you.
All right, there's no other business before the board. We stand adjourned. Thank you. Not your fault.